What's up, everybody? Today, I want to talk about my biggest insecurity. Now, my insecurity might seem small or it may seem big, but none of that really matters anyways. We all have something that we're a little bit shy about, so today I'm just going to share what that insecurity is and what I'm doing to navigate through it. Yvonne is currently ruining my opportunity for this perfect prime daylight to film this YouTube video. You want to leave our viewers with a special message?
Bruh. I know what this will do work.
Before we get into the video, if you're new to my channel, what's up? My name is Wen, and I make videos documenting my experience as a creator and a full-time 9-to-5er. Is that a word? 9 to 5? 9-to-5er? Full-time worker? I don't know. If that interests you, join me on my YouTube journey as I navigate this thing called life. Anyways, let's get into the video. So, my biggest insecurity, what is it? Just give me a second. My biggest insecurity is actually this. It's my prosthetic leg. Now you're probably wondering, what happened? How did you get this leg? I'll give you the TLDR version, but if you guys want to hear more about the in-depth story of actually how this all happened, leave a comment if this is something you guys are interested in knowing more about, and I'll make a video about it. But basically, when I was a baby, I was involved in an accident where I was actually burned from the waist down. So I actually have tons and tons of scars on my body. Even have like a little scar right here on my knuckle from the accident. You probably can't see, it's probably blurred, but it's there. And I have it from here all the way down. But basically what happened was, in the fire, my left leg was severely burned to the point where it was not recoverable. And so that meant I had to get a prosthetic leg. And I only have one. My right leg is also burned. You probably can't see it, but I have scars right here. And luckily, though it was still burned, I don't need a prosthetic leg for this one. That's the TLDR version of my story of how I ended up with my prosthetic leg. And this accident actually occurred when I was just a baby, like less than 1 year old. And I actually didn't get my first prosthetic leg until I was about 7. Probably wondering, how did I get around if I didn't have a prosthetic leg before 7 years old? Basically, my leg actually comes all the way down to here, so I can technically walk without the leg. Any unpredictable surface is a little bit tough for me to walk on. But basically what I did was I would take what I had of my leg and shove it into a shoe and tie it really tight, wearing a lot of socks so it's comfortable. And that's how I would walk around without a prosthetic leg. Obviously this wasn't the ideal choice, but at the time I was in an orphanage and this is all they could afford to do. So when I got my first prosthetic leg at roughly 7 years old, you bet I was so happy to actually be able to wear shoes, 1, and then 2, be able to walk on surfaces like I'm like everybody else, and 3, I don't have to worry about hitting stuff on my shin because it doesn't hurt, you know? And I'm 23 years old, so I've had my fair share of prosthetic legs since I was 7 years old. But it wasn't always an insecurity for myself. Growing up, I was homeschooled, so I wasn't around a lot of people. But when I was around people, I was always really excited to actually share about my leg and my story anytime anybody ever asked. They'd be like, hey, what happened to your leg? I'd be like, oh, it was burned in a fire. They'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't until high school where I started to have this insecure feeling. See, going from homeschool to about 2,000 kids, like all your age, was a huge change for me. And it wasn't something that I was used to. I hadn't really had a good idea of what a public school looked like because all I had seen was like the movies and the school bullies. And I was like, oh my goodness, if this is what I have to experience, it doesn't look like it's going to be a fun time there. I'd like to consider myself middle-leaning extroverted, but even this was a little bit much for myself. And so I remember I was overthinking about like, oh, what are people gonna think? You know, are people gonna be just as chill with me as they have been before? It actually wasn't that bad. My first day, I remember, it was either my first day or my second, third day, but I had PE class. And if you're in the American school education system, you know that usually for PE class you have to run a lot for me. In this PE class, every Thursday we had to run at least like a mile or a mile and a half, something like that. It was not fun. And I remember, dang, like we have to run a mile. Like, you know, I'm not somebody who was active all the time, and so a mile for me is like super long. So I remember getting to the locker room and I was like, okay, I gotta run this mile. I suck at running, but let's do it. Let's see what happens. So we're starting this mile. So you start from like the PE room, you go this way around the school, and then you go to the track, which is right here, and then the finish line. And when I was running on the track, I got to a point where these few kids actually slowed down to match my pace. These kids didn't know me, I didn't know them, and they matched my pace and they ran with me all the way to the finish line. And that was the coolest moment for me in high school. It almost felt like a scene from a movie. So obviously I didn't finish in first, but I made a strong effort, and I remember a good amount of people had actually already made it. I wasn't the last one, thank goodness. No hate to the person that was last, but thank you. And from that point, I thought, okay, like maybe having a prosthetic leg isn't like that bad, like being in public school. And for the most part, it wasn't actually. It was mostly me that started to like have this sort of like feeling of, oh, maybe everyone's looking at me, maybe everyone is like judging me. And maybe people were, but nobody was really like telling me these things. And so these thoughts just started occurring to me, and it became really tough to overcome. And I'm usually a person that would like wear shorts. I love the freedom in short. The pants are just too restricting sometimes, I started wearing more pants to hide my prosthetic leg because I didn't know why people were staring at me when I was walking down the hallway, like if it was a good intent or if it had that bad intent. And that freaked me out. And so I just wanted to avoid the whole situation by wearing pants. During that time as a high school student, so many things are changing in your life, your feelings, your emotions, and the life just becomes a little bit more complex than when you're a kid. Because when you're a kid, when somebody asks about your prosthetic leg, like a kid is just gonna like answer the question, no thought. There's no like, maybe they're asking me this question because of X, Y, and Z. There's like none of that. But when you're a high school student, you're starting to develop like a better understanding of the world. You start to overthink, and these things can become really difficult to navigate. And for myself, I didn't know anybody with a prosthetic leg at the time. I still don't know anybody personally with a prosthetic leg. And I think it would have been nice to have known someone that I could ask questions to of, hey, like, I'm having these feelings. I have a prosthetic leg. I feel really insecure about it. But I didn't have anybody like that. I really felt like the odd one out. So high school was the starting point of my insecurity. So fast forward to all the way now, I'm 23, and I'm not gonna lie, I still have a little bit of that feeling of insecurity, but I have gotten a little bit better at managing those feelings. One of the biggest things that I realized was that when I was a kid, I totally own up to the idea that I had a prosthetic leg. I think in a way that helped me a lot to not feel so insecure. When I got to high school, because I knew that people were staring and looking and I didn't know what they were thinking, I started to hide behind the fact that I had a prosthetic leg. I didn't want anybody to know that I had a prosthetic leg at that point. But the thing that helped me was like understanding that my prosthetic leg is not something to be ashamed of. It's literally something I can't control anyway. So it's like I might as well have a positive outlook on it. And instead of hiding behind my prosthetic leg, I wanted to own it. I want to be like, yeah, I got a prosthetic leg. And in this moment, I was totally owning up to what I had and standing in front of it instead of behind it. And this really helped me to feel less ashamed about my insecurity and sort of regain my identity that my prosthetic leg is an attachment of me, but it doesn't make me me. And so even today, this is still something that I'm working really hard to improve on. I still have days where I'm like, dang, like this stuff sucks. It's tough, but it's actually funny. I did have a moment the other day. I was telling my girlfriend, I was walking and I was putting my prosthetic leg on, and I was like, dang, this shit's for life. And throughout my day-to-day tasks, when I'm working, when I'm walking, when I'm, going by to eat, sometimes I totally forget about it. It's just kind of funny that it is something that's totally gonna be for life, and I have to make that decision that I need to love this part of myself because it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And so the best thing that I could do is really appreciate what it's done for me and what I'm allowed to do with it, because if I don't have my prosthetic leg, I'm not leaving this chair. Everyone has their own insecurities. Some of ours are within ourselves and some of ours are physical, and you never know what anybody is going through. So you really gotta be understanding and empathetic to people's situation. I remember when I was at the airport and I was taking really slow time putting my stuff in the bin at TSA, and at this time I was wearing pants, and this person to the right of me was like saying like, come on, hurry up, and I had to I took my prosthetic leg off, throw it on the bin. so they could get scanned through. And the person that they were with were like, hey, stop. And they were like pointing at my prosthetic leg, and the person was like, so sorry. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't get offended because I understand everyone's in a rush. You don't know everybody's situation though. And so the biggest thing I've learned is, yes, my situation is physical and you can see my insecurity, but only when I'm wearing shorts. And not everyone else's insecurity is gonna be easily visible as mine. So you have to be nice to people, be nice to other people, because you never know what they're going through. You don't know how they're feeling about something, and the best thing you could do is just be a good person. Before the video ends, I want to just leave you with this, and that is, your insecurity is a part of you, but it doesn't make up the final image of who you are. What you do in this world, how you treat others, and if you're a good person or not determines your value. You're doing great, and you got this. If you made it this far, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me to chatter about my biggest insecurity. If you're comfortable, I'd love to hear about your insecurity and some of the things that you might be doing to overcome your insecurity. By the way, if you guys want to know what it's like to actually live with a prosthetic leg, like a day in the life of someone with a prosthetic leg, let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. Or if you have any other YouTube video ideas, drop them in the comments and maybe I'll make them. If you liked today's video, I'd love if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.